Could San Diego State be the beneficiary of USC and UCLA's move to the Big Ten? In more ways than one. We'll explain coming up here. It's the newest edition of the Aztecs Wrap-Up Show with John Schaefer. If you are here, please subscribe. We have year-round content for fans of San Diego State athletics. Also, smash the like button for me if you wouldn't mind. If you're looking for the audio-only edition of the show, you can find it by clicking the link in the description down below. Now, we all realize that, of course, San Diego State could potentially benefit from this move. We've been talking about it for a year. There was no path to the Pac-12. There may have been a path to the Big 12 or the Power 5, but there was no path to the Pac-12 with SC and UCLA in the league. I mean, we've talked about that for 30 or 40 years in San Diego County. But all of a sudden, with SC and UCLA departing for the Big Ten, well, we know that could be advantageous for San Diego State. But it's about more than just getting to the Power 5. It could work to San Diego State's benefit from a recruiting perspective. So let me explain here on the wrap-up show. I'm going to go back to March with San Diego State on the run to the national championship game. I remember Brian Dutcher was asked about conference realignment, where San Diego State fits. And I think he was asked this question by Pete Thamel of ESPN, but it was in Louisville at the South Regional. Here's a direct quote from Brian Dutcher, San Diego State's men's basketball head coach, about realignment, about geography, about maybe where San Diego State could fit in this equation as well. Brian Dutcher. So we all just adapt to it and make the best of it. From an old personal standpoint, I just feel you should play regionally. It's better on the kids. It's easier to be a student athlete instead of just an athlete. So I'm all for trying to stay as regional as you can for the sports that we play. Now, remember, San Diego State's path to a national championship game included a lot of travel, and it was charter travel. It wasn't your typical commercial travel, right? Point A to point B was easier in the NCAA tournament, but they had to go to Orlando. And they even experienced a little bit of a travel delay when they made that trip to Orlando. And that was a topic of discussion before they won a couple of games. Then they returned to San Diego, and they had to go to Louisville. Then they returned to San Diego, and they had to go to Houston. And I think after the Orlando trip, Dutch talked about, man, that was just one trip to Orlando. I can only imagine what it would mean and the impact it would have on programs, student athletes, coaches, preparation if you had to make that trip routinely. Now, that's something, listen, USC and UCLA are going to have a lot of advantages that they've always had, right? I mean, they have their market. They're going to have additional exposure in the Big Ten Conference. What do I mean by that? I mean, look at the networks of their new TV deal, right? NBC and CBS and ABC. The exposure is going to be through the roof in the revenue-generating sports. They will have more revenue than they've ever had. They're leaving the Pac-12. Many have theorized. I mean, it's basically a foregone conclusion. They've left because they want more revenue, and they'll create more revenue. That's unquestioned. That's undeniable that they'll create more revenue now in the Big Ten than they could have created in the Pac-12. But the one thing that they may have walked away from was the ability to successfully recruit regionally like they were able to do previously. And why do I say that? I have to imagine, and you've heard Brian Dutcher allude to this, I think you've heard J.D. Wicker say this, and Brady Hoke as well, San Diego State's football coach, that when you're recruiting an athlete in San Diego County, Orange County, Los Angeles County, just the West, Phoenix area, Northern California, Oregon and Washington, just the West, do all of those athletes want to compete in the Midwest? I mean, do all of them want to compete in the Midwest? You say, what do you mean Midwest? They're going to be playing in LA if they go to USC or UCLA. Well, yeah, they will half the time. But what about when they have to play in conference? Football may be not as big of a deal. It's 4 or 5 games. But a sport like basketball and all of the Olympic sports, you are playing on the road, and you're doing so more than 3 or 4 times. And maybe it's 3 or 4 trips, but those are going to be long trips. Does every kid out of San Diego County that plays football want to play in West Lafayette and State College and College Park? Or do they want to play in Phoenix and the Bay Area and the Pacific Northwest? And can their friends and family get to every single game if they're playing in State College and they're playing in Piscataway, New Jersey? And you get the point. So I think that while SC and UCLA have walked into a situation that long-term could be beneficial and might open up their national recruiting profile, not that USC needs it, but what they may be walking away from is some of their regional appeal. And I think that's where San Diego State can potentially really plant its flag. Not to compare USC and UCLA to some of the other outlier geographic programs in the Power 5, because obviously SC kind of stands alone and UCLA is being pulled along with SC because of the market. But think about some of the programs in the Power Five right now that are not in a geographic footprint of its league. I'll give you an example. West Virginia, entering into the Big 12 in this new age of conference realignment. West Virginia has struggled, I think, by all accords in football and men's basketball. Not every single year, and they've had highs, but there have been some lows in there as well, when every single one of their trips is literally 1,500 miles, and they're routinely traveling to the state of Texas. Or look at Nebraska in the Big Ten. Do they fit it from a geographic standpoint the way they fit in when they were in the Big 12 as an outlier to the West, basically of all programs now other than USC and UCLA? Look at a Syracuse or a Boston College or even a Pitt in the ACC. Have they enjoyed repeated success in the revenue sports, right? I think these are fair questions. Colorado in the Pac-12, when they were ushered in as the easternmost program, have they enjoyed the success in the Pac-12 that they previously enjoyed in the Big 12? Now, you could argue that SC is its own beast, its own entity, and maybe they can win despite that. But you look at San Diego State, and I think San Diego State now is able to maybe protect kids in San Diego County. Brady Hoke has talked about building a fence, building a border around San Diego, and it's a lot easier said than done once you're in the Power Five. It's completely understandable that San Diego State is going to lose programs to the Power Five in football. I mean, that's to be expected. I mean, a lot of kids are going to want the opportunities to play at that level with that exposure. If San Diego State makes the leap to the Power Five and is playing programs in the West, you can't really use the Power Five against them. And what they can use to their advantage is, hey, you don't have to play games in East Lansing. You don't have to play games at Penn State. You can play games right here. And you have the opportunity to have your family and your friends see you, whether it's at home or on the road. I really do believe that could work out very beneficially for San Diego State. This is the Pac-12, and this is Southern California. And San Diego State's going to be able to go over after a lot of athletes in Orange County and LA County and San Diego County. And I think part of the pitch, in addition to, hey, we got a brand new football stadium. Hey, we're in the Pac-12. Hey, look at the academic success of our university. Hey, we're one of the most applied to schools in the country. In addition to that, we afford you the opportunity to stay home. That's something USC and UCLA do not any longer provide to you. It's something that at least has to be considered. And don't get me wrong, I understand. USC and UCLA, they have the recruiting advantages. They've got the money advantages. They have the additional resources. But San Diego State, in this new era, if they get to the Pac-12, can they carve out their own advantages, specifically through recruiting because of geography, and use that against programs like SC and UCLA? Would love your feedback. You can put it in the comments down below. If you're here, please subscribe. Year-round content for San Diego State Aztecs fans. Smash the like button as well. If you're looking for the audio-only edition of this show, click the link in the description down below. Until next time, this has been John Schaefer for the Aztecs Wrap-Up Show.